Do some of the creator feuds these days seem just a little bit more petty, a little bit more polarized? Well, the answers are they are. I mean, compared to some of the feuds that have happened in the past and some of the things that creators got angry with each other about, the ones that happen today are actually pretty lame. But how can you top John Byrne blowing up Jim Shooter's hometown? So anyway, let's talk about this bit.
Recording of this video, something happened. Basically, Sean Gordon Murphy decided to drop doing the cover for Doug TenNapel. He said that it was a mutual decision. They talked together and they came to this conclusion, or maybe that was inferred. It was hard to tell from the note. But this doesn't change the topic of this video and what it's all going on about, which is that basically, feuds today are sort of dumb and really based on cancel culture more than anything else. For the record, I think it was a bad idea to cancel the cover, not because I stand with one person or another, but because these issues of somebody is doing something else for someone in a very tangential way. This is not something to do an outrage mob over. This is not something that we need big purity tests and rage over. And unfortunately, when you change course because of an outrage mob, it emboldens the outrage mob to do more. And a lot of people say, oh, this is good. It's us building toward a better society. Well, not really, because the outrage mob exists on all sides. It's not just the left that has an outrage mob. The right has an outrage mob. Independents have an outrage mob. They're everywhere. And when you teach society, people in general, that if they complain, if they shout, if they make a fuss, if they draw attention to themselves on social media, if you teach them that you will then acquiesce, you will then go with what they say, they will keep doing it over and over again and in increasingly stupid ways. It's not that you're drawing a line, some kind of moral standard, and then everybody will then kind of collect under that moral standard. The line keeps getting moved. If you can get something canceled for one reason, then let's see if we can get it canceled for another reason that's maybe not as firm. And let's just keep moving that in and moving that in and moving that in. Now, again, I don't beat up on Sean Gordon Murphy for changing his mind. Things happen. He's on the cusp of a huge moment in his career of making his entire kind of Batman universe for DC and having a lot of creative control over it, much like Jonathan Hickman does for X-Men. And if I had that kind of opportunity, I'd be very nervous. I'd be protecting my position, of course. That's just playing your career and doing the right thing professionally. But I still find it a shame because this will continue. The people who won the outrage mob will crow and will be excited about what they have done. And then they will do it again and again and again. And the side that they're attacking will use this as justification to do it back in return. And so we're in a never-ending cycle that just goes nowhere. Anyway, now to the original video. Again, nothing really changes here. I still don't know how to pronounce this Doug TenNapel's name properly, and that's okay. That's my cross to bear. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I'm doing this series of kind of creator feuds, how did it happen. I did the one about John Byrne, Joe Quesada. I've got a couple others, Grant Morrison and Alan Moore, and kind of how Mark Miller fits into that, and just various others. I like studying kind of the various things that cause creators to kind of fall out with each other. But in a and answer the question of why certain things happen. Why is Rob Liefeld so happy that Dan Didio was fired? What was the background behind that? I'm going to take great pains in these videos not to pick sides. I'm not trying to say this side is better than the other side. I just want to lay out kind of here's the history of what led up to it, because it answers common questions I get, which is like, why doesn't John Byrne draw or write things for Marvel anymore? What's going on? When did that happen? Well, here's some of the history that got it there. Not all the history. I'm sure there's a million things I don't know, but anyway, what I do know. But as I'm laying these things out, I'm reminded of current feuds, and current feuds tend to come around kind of one of two topics. Kind of, you picture three little bubbles. Bubble number one is politics. These are people who like Trump or do not like Trump, and that's one source of angst. And then the other one, and in reality, it's almost the exact same bubble. It's people who have gone in on, quote unquote, Comicsgate, or people who have not. Now, here's where I think that feud is probably more irritating to me than politics, because if you take a stance of, hey, I'm going to talk to anybody who has an opinion. Like Brian Edward Hill is a guy who, deep Comicsgate people who put Comicsgate in their tag, like I love Cyberpunk in their handle. They can ask Brian Hill a question like, hey, how did you get into screenwriting? And Brian Hill will generally answer. He has time, he will answer. He will not say, I'm blocking you. You have a frog in your name. He'll just answer. Now, if you ask him, hey, what do you think of, are you going to be all in with Comicsgate? He might say, no, I disagree with kind of some of the fundamental parts of that. I'm not putting words in his mouth. I'm just, he's, if you ask him, like, hey, do you like Trump? He'll say, no, I don't like Trump. But he doesn't stop talking to people. He doesn't say, hey, it's auto block to whoever is remotely affiliated with a Doug TenNapel, for example. TenNapel, I don't know. Anyway, he's not going to just block people for that. He will talk. If you ask him a polite question, he'll give you a polite answer. If you are rude to him, he will probably ignore you. Or, that's his stance. Unfortunately, taking that stance, which, by the way, for the record, is generally my stance as well. I try and make that my stance anyway. Some people have pushed me one direction or another. I've tried to take some of the Comicsgate complaints, like, prices are too expensive, or, certain hiring is done for nepotism reasons, whatever else. And I try and examine them and say, well, what's the truth behind that? Let's look at it. I don't just dismiss it out of hand saying, this is a racist topic and let it go. I try and actually kind of digest it. By doing that, in today's world, you are picking a side. Brian Hill has been very lucky not to have a side. I'll tell you, when I did the interview with Brian Hill, I was very worried that there would be people who would be pissed at Brian Hill for talking to me. Even though I can go down the list. I'm all for diversity. I think that, I don't think the current president is a good one. I can go down the list of things I, agree with, but lots of people disagree with me all the time. There are people who are big Trump supporters who listen. I mean, but again, not to go down too many tangents, but to set the record straight, which I've done before, I think all the politicians are pretty crappy right now. I'm not, sometimes people are like, oh, you say you don't like Trump, so you're a Biden supporter. I'm like, oh God, no, he's terrible. So, I mean, I'm in camp, functional human, please. Anyway, but whatever. This is not about politics. The point is, I think that, people have gotten themselves into feuds. I said there are three things. There are politics. There's this kind of, where do you fall on Comicsgate, not Comicsgate. Unfortunately, it's, do you even talk or associate with anyone that even remotely resembles people who are Comicsgate? Then you're on that side. You're bad. That's kind of how that argument plays out. And then the last one, and the most innocent and charming of them all, is kind of big two companies versus indies. So this is where you're either a Marvel or DC fan, or you're an indies fan. Those battles are the best of all, because those are the ones that are seem to be the most honest. It's people who are like, don't sell out to the man, versus corporate comics can be great. You do like a big name Marvel or DC movie, well, you're a poser. That one feels to me like good old, like 80s 90s scrapping between comic companies. I like that one. I always find those are enjoyable. Of course, you get loonies on any side, but that one's the happiest one. But today, the feuds that go on between creators are so much more lame, because, for example, Tess Fowler, who's a creator, part of Rat Queens, has a pretty, interestingly enough, there are a lot of people who will defend Tess Fowler, talks about how she's, a buddy and everything else. But yet, you do notice that she doesn't get a lot of work. There's a lot of people, editors and others, writers at Marvel and DC, who are, profess to be big fans of Tess Fowler, but they're not, she's not writing those books. And by the way, this has been asked before, and it's like, well, I wouldn't want to write those books even if you asked me. It's like, yeah, but I mean, checks cash money. So I'm just saying, you have people who claim to support you, but they don't give you work. Why? Because, the dirty little secret, and this is what goes on at cons, is you will talk to somebody. It's like, yeah, she's wonderful, I like her and everything else, but, don't give her money or something that, there's a deadline associated to. These are not my words, by the way. This is just what people say. And so this is kind of this individual, but an indie comic creator. She's out there. It's fine. She got a lot of recognition for talking to Bleeding Cool some time ago about Brian Wood and kind of calling him out and calling him a harasser, and that kind of ended his comics run to some extent. And anyway, it was all wrapped up in that. But then she in turn got called out for doing some super shady behavior on her own. And then her defense was that person's a lying and a harasser and a stalker. And so it is kind of a he said, she said situation, both directions, both when she was making the accusations and then when they were being made against her. Unfortunately, that's not the interesting part of today's feud. Today's feud is that she's calling out Sean Gordon Murphy because Sean Gordon Murphy drew a cover, I guess, for Earthworm Jim or some Doug TenNapel project. And that's apparently Sean Gordon Murphy, who, also talks to people who are, Comicsgate adjacent. I don't even know if that's a thing. But apparently he doesn't block people who are, quote unquote, Comicsgate. Therefore, he is a bad guy. And a number of different comic creators, Donny Cates, others, called him a bad guy for not, blocking these other people. He's a scummy guy. We all know he's a scummy guy. I don't know. And you know what? Here's the crazy part. I don't know what, for all I know, Sean Gordon Murphy is like secretly kind of, it has this underground tunnel of money, and he's secretly funneling it all in to Ethan Van Sciver. And the two of them are making this secret underground comics that are super racist. And they're making this big plan, and it's going to be revealed to the world one day, and it's going to be horrible. And he uses a pen name to secretly, I mean, Richard Meyer is actually Sean Gordon Murphy. It's like a mask, and he pulls it off, and it's Sean Gordon Murphy under there. That's who that must be. No, I think Sean Gordon Murphy's a guy. You like his work, you don't like his work. You're a fan of his art, you don't like his art. He does stories, you like him, you don't like him, whatever. He's achieved some success at DC recently for the White Knight universe of his comic books, which has nothing to do with the internet White Knight term. It's just anyway. You'd have to read the comic, but anyway. So he's getting some success. DC's letting him do some things. Sean Gordon Murphy reaches out to Blake Northcutt, who's a friend of his, or at least somebody he's been gotten along well with, and they're going to be doing something together. That's bad too, because Blake Northcutt also doesn't block people who are and unless I miss my guess, I don't think that Blake or Sean Gordon Murphy, I don't think they're going on like Yellow Flash's YouTube show. Last I checked, I don't think they are. Maybe they are, and I just missed it. But I think they're just, their big crime is they didn't block people. Anyway, so Des Fowler gets mad at Sean Gordon Murphy, who's always been a scumbag in her eyes, and he did a cover for Doug TenNapel because apparently, I'm going to just pronounce that guy's name 8 different ways before this video is out. Anyway, I think Doug is... paid him, I'm assuming. I would hope so. Doug paid him some money, and Sean Gordon Murphy did a cover for them, and that's all she wrote. And apparently, there you go. And right now, I mean, Sean Gordon Murphy sells a lot of comics. Curse of the White Knight and his books do well. He's getting his own imprint. So if you have some cash and you are making a comic, and whether you're, super right wing, super left wing, whatever you happen to be, giving Sean Gordon Murphy some cash to do a cover seems like probably a smart business decision to help sell your book, because he's a good property right now. He's good. His work is wanted. So this sparked off, feud of the day, and Fowler makes these comments, and then people are angry, and then again some comic creators weigh in. Gary Duggan, I think, weighed in, Donny Cates, and others, and I don't know. I lost track, and I saw this kind of hill starting to form, and just started to ignore it. So for what it's worth. And it should go without saying. The fact I have to say this, I think, is what's wrong with today's feuds and why they are so lame and boring. For what it's worth, I think, one, Sean Gordon Murphy can draw whatever he wants. Two, if somebody wants to pay Sean Gordon Murphy and Sean Gordon Murphy wants to take that check, then great. Three, you don't have to buy it. Don't buy it. I don't know. I mean... the weirdest part is people on all sides, by the way, people within Comicsgate, people outside of Comicsgate, people all over the place. It's the same kind of thing when, people are like, oh, The Pervert, that comic was coming out, and people are like, well, they should get it canceled because she said some pretty offensive things, which were legitimately offensive about the military and about Richard Meyer and whatever else. And it's like, we should cancel this comic. It should be canceled. Image should stop publishing it. It's like, or you could just not buy it. Just don't buy it and let the market take care of itself. Same thing is true here with Doug Tenapel, Doug's book. Don't buy it. I mean, this one, unless I miss something, I believe it's another Indiegogo type project. It's the people who fund it, will get the comic, and Doug will get the money from that comic. So what is the problem? Like, this is an even weirder thing to cancel somebody over, because it's not like that comic shops are gonna get duped into buying his comic, or some poor innocent comic shop that's not paying attention to any of this stuff is going to go into the previews catalog and say, oh, okay, I know Earthworm Jim from something. I'll put 5 copies down and get that in. And, oh, I didn't realize he was secretly against gay people. So if I only I would have known. That's not the case here. It's like a crowdfunded comic. People are opting in to buy it. They can buy it or not buy it. If you hate him, don't buy it. If you super duper hate him, I guess tell some friends. I guess. I mean, I don't know. Is that the thing you want to spend your day on? Whatever. But this whole thing, to me, 5-10 years from now, it's going to be hard for me to imagine that we're going to be talking about kind of that epic battle and feud and kind of crisis in the comics community of people complaining about other people because of their affiliations on Twitter. I mean, I just can't picture it. If that is true, then let the virus take everybody out now. I mean, we might as well. It just feels so lame that this is what comic kind of culture and community has gotten to. And I also think, anytime someone tries to tell you that comic creators are very supportive of each other and supposed that they're not, though. This is an example of how they are not. And they never really have been. I mean, again, the John Byrne, the Jim Shooter stuff was legendary. The Steve Ditko didn't like anyone. I mean, there's lots of stories to be told. We're going to tell them all. There's always been this battle, but at times the comic community says, hey, we're a close-knit circle. It's a very small business, so if you want to get along, you got to get along. It's like, yeah, but I think that's impossible, because there seems to be always feuds and factions. The problem is the current feuds and factions are super dumb. It is a dumb world we're living in, where this is what we've got. We've got some guy paid another guy to do a cover, and some indie artist who doesn't really get work anymore because she's a flake complains, and this sets off comic creators complaining. I mean, is this? I don't know. We deserve better feuds. It's not the feud we want, but it's a feud we deserve. Maybe that's it? I don't know. What do you think? Somebody tell me how to pronounce Doug Tenapel's name. Maybe I just did it right. I don't know. Somebody could be my guest. You can tell me how to do this. Do you think this is a feud worth investing in? Do you think that people have just gotten lamer about this? Why? Is it just politics? Is this all Trump? It's hard to believe this is all Trump. I think, yeah. And plus, some of this stuff that was going on with Fowler and others were happening during the Obama time. So, I mean, I don't think this is all Trump. I think this is just kind of how social media, warps brains that probably would be better served, making stuff and selling it. I would think. And last but not least, in the comments below, let me know, where do I sit? Tell me where I sit. I am told that I am a sellout to the creators. I am a stooge of the big comic business. I am told I am the heart of Comicsgate and a terrible person. I'm told that I'm on the outside. I'm told that I'm a weird cosplaying. I've never actually put on, just, I know I have on my Twitter account, I have the Pooh Bear icon as the profile pic, but I've never dressed up. I'm not furry. I don't dress up like Pooh. I don't know. That wouldn't work well for me. I'm just saying. Anyway, this end of the video has gone off the rails, so like, subscribe if you can stomach it. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.